Hi everybody, Kimberly DeWitt from DeWitt Consultancy Partners. Welcome to the end of an incredible trip. We've been here in Tanzania for a little over 2 weeks and a couple of days. We'll be heading back to the States on Saturday evening around 9:30. I'm ready to go home. It's been a good trip, made a lot of good accomplishments, got a good to-do list for July when we come back. So great trip overall. This particular summary is going to be broken up into a couple of different parts, so feel free to enjoy at your leisure. This first video blog is going to be a business summary of our goals that we were wanting to accomplish, what we got accomplished, what we didn't quite get accomplished, things we still have left to do. The second video is going to be a profile on Tawa. I had an opportunity on Wednesday to go to their project site in Kisarare, which is an area about 3.5 hours outside of Tanzania. And then my last vlog will be something that I've owed you guys for a couple of days now, which is some of the personal observations and learnings and things of that nature, of a more personal nature about my trip, things in Tanzania, stuff like that, things in Africa. So that should be interesting, be a little fun time. Maybe you'll learn a couple of things, maybe you won't. Either way, I'm putting it out there. So feel free to view any of those videos as they get posted. Probably won't all be today, but definitely keep an eye out for that. Business summary video will get posted today. So let's get started. So overall, we had a pretty ambitious list of goals for this trip. One of which being making connections, because part of strategic expansion is building partnerships, especially when you go to an area where you've never been before. And granted, I've been to Tanzania a couple of times now, but it's been as a client, or been as a vendor working with a client. This time, since we are officially starting our strategic expansion and using the Technology Learning Alliance idea and plan as the basis for that, in addition to the rest of our services, I'm essentially coming to a new market. And so this particular trip was meant to start to build some connections, start to get in and make myself known, make some introductions, start to learn some of the ins and outs of doing business in Tanzania. I would imagine that building a business internationally, regardless of the country, is a difficult endeavor. So please don't let me give you the idea that this is easy, quick, and lucrative to start, because that is not the case. Africa in general is a very interpersonal society. So unlike the United States, where you can conduct business over a Zoom call or over email, for example, here in Africa, it's very much about people. So building relationships, learning who to know, who to talk to, building up that emotional trust with folks is very important to be successful here in Africa, which is part of the reason why when you come to Africa, plan to stay a while. Even 2 weeks really isn't enough time. I make it enough time, but if I could be here for 3 weeks, maybe 4, that would probably be a lot more beneficial in terms of having time to build up those relationships. So something to keep in mind. So as a whole, what our goals were, I'll just kind of list them out because I have them in my fancy notebook here. Our goals were, we wanted to get to 3 to 5 schools. We wanted to do some school and university visits. We wanted to talk with USAID. We wanted to go check out some Toastmaster groups for eventually providing speaking skills type development. Talk to a real estate agent. Do some tours of schools. And then also I had more mundane things on my list. So such as starting a bank account, for example, getting my business registered, getting in contact with legal resources. A couple of other items were start scouting locations for the Technology Learning Alliance. Reason being is that for some of the certifications that we'll be offering eventually, such as a PMP or some of the more technical certifications through Cisco or CompTIA, things of that nature, some of those require a physical location because you have to offer proctored tests. So we're aiming to be a full service facility over here. So having a physical location is going to be important for us. And then also my last goal was getting a P.O. box. So I'm sharing some office space over here in Dar, but a risk to sharing office space with business venture partners, clients, whoever, is that as their businesses change and grow and develop, then that creates additional risk for your company because your address could change. Or in this case, the office actually ended up closing. So I wanted to establish a physical address at some point here. So let's talk about what we accomplished in this trip. So overall, I would consider this trip a victory in terms of we met a good portion of the goals we wanted to meet. A good example, some of the goals that we met was figuring out cash, ATM stuff, making sure our credit cards worked. Do not sleep on having multiple ways to fund yourself while you're traveling. Cash is great, but cash can also make you a target, especially in a country like Tanzania where the dollar goes really far. So $1, for example, is almost about 2,400 T shillings, which I'll show you money in my personal part of my vlog. But essentially, you end up carrying these small piles of cash because of the conversion rate. And given how far the dollar goes, if you're carrying that much cash around, that makes you a target. So it's always good to have credit cards around so you can charge stuff, not have cash just floating around and all in your pockets and stuff. So all my credit cards worked, which was really great. Didn't have any issues there. Also, we had an issue with internet when I first got here because I was in a different location that didn't have very good Wi-Fi. So I ended up going to Airtel and getting Wi-Fi. So now I have I don't have it right now. You'll see it in the personal. I have a personal Wi-Fi device now that I can add to my arsenal so that when I come back to Tanzania, come back and forth, all I have to do is go buy data for it and I'll have a personal Wi-Fi. Much preferred over using some organization's Wi-Fi, like a hotel or if you're in a public cafe or something like that. For the exact same reasons, you tend not to do it back at home because Wi-Fi can be hacked. Folks can be taking advantage of the fact that people on their public Wi-Fi, all up in their bank details, and conducting sensitive business potentially. So having that secure Wi-Fi now is going to be definitely be a risk mitigator for me in terms of, especially as I'm working on client stuff while I'm out and traveling. In terms of meetings, we met all of our goals and actually had some bonus ones as well. So part of our meeting we had scheduled ahead of time was meeting with AmCham, meeting with the Department of Commerce and the U.S. Commercial Service. Those we talked about in earlier videos. So those were scheduled before I got here. We were able to meet, had good connections, had good presentations. I also had an opportunity to meet with some personal contacts here, one of which being Victoria Heilman over at Tawa, another being a gentleman named Joe Bashota, and he is of a banking background, who used to work for the World Bank. So special thanks to my African friends who recommended that I go meet this guy. Very good conversation, gave me a good recommendation on a bank, which was another goal on my list to eventually start a bank account. So it's always good to get recommendations. Had a good meeting there. We made some progress in potentially getting a legal resource, because at some point, to be able to have a bank account, to be able to rent real estate, things of that nature, you're going to need a business license. You need the proper documentation to operate in the country that you want to operate in. And there's a threshold for us, specifically for DCP, because a lot of our work is services right now. So some of that we can do within our American business entity, but as we start to get more and more embedded and as we start to plant more roots here, we're going to have to set up an actual business entity so that we can go rent real estate, so I can start that bank account, corporate bank account, things of that nature. So we made some good inroads in terms of getting some legal resources there that we'll be following up on. In the banking aspect, a lot of Tanzania is cash-based, but like any economy, banking and the ability to participate in the banking system, it can be very important. As we start to get clients over here, obviously our clients aren't going to always pay in cash. And so we'll definitely need a banking account and the ability to take in payments, things of that nature. So we got good recommendations for Mr. Brashota. So I'll be working on that. One thing will be getting my passport updated, because you need a valid, you need a valid passport to be able to start a bank account, whether it be individual or corporate. So as I mentioned earlier, having an up-to-date passport is very important. Definitely first on my list when I come back. Another good opportunity that we had, another good goal that we met that I have not mentioned to you guys, is that part of this trip was we were working on, between myself and my business partner, we were working on hiring our first employee. So DCP was working on hiring its first Tanzanian employee. Unfortunately, although we put an ad out and we got about 6 to 8 resumes for this first go out, unfortunately none were very qualified for what we were needing them for, because essentially they'd be doing 2 jobs. They would be working for me part-time in helping to promote DCP, get our name out there, get us some exposure, as well as working with my business partner with his company as well. So we will go back to the drawing board on that for July when we return. But still, from a DCP standpoint, that is a very awesome milestone that we can share with our business partner and be able to share in a resource and share in paying for a resource that is working for us in Tanzania. So we are slowly but surely expanding. So give us a clap for that, because that is very awesome progress. Another goal that we had was to start visiting and start exploring outside of Dar. So I will tell you that Dar es Salaam is humongous. You could be here for years and never see all of it. And I'm sure there are some US cities that you could say the same about, but Dar is a different kind of animal in general. So we had an opportunity via going to the project set on Tawa. We had a chance to go see the countryside and go to a smaller village called Kisarare. And it was interesting. It was beautiful, but roads distinctly come to a stop because they're still building out the roads and building out from Dar es Salaam. So at some point in this trip, we literally ran out of road. And we were taking dirt road all the way to the rest to where we were going. So that was interesting, but I got to see the countryside. I got to see the humongous plateau, the open land. Kind of reminds you of Kansas, but with a lot more forest. But it was nice to be able to look out and see hundreds of miles out. It was great. So we did meet that goal. So talking about some of the goals that we didn't meet this time. We were wanting to do some exploration about land, because part of our expansion and part of what we would like to do with the TLA is to build a center of excellence. And to do that, to kind of build a compound of some sort, you really do need land for that. And so there's plenty of land to be had in Dar es Salaam, especially in some of the expanding areas, and especially with technology being so big now, and electricity and internet and things like that just becoming slightly more easier to get access to every year, every day, kind of like that. Our hope is at one point we'll be able to purchase land to build this compound, to be able to be that center of tech excellence, to where you can come get very good internet, to where you can come get classes in various tech aspects, whether that be data development or web development, professional development, all of those great things. And again, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just making it easier to get to. So, didn't quite get to the land. We'll work on that, come back in July. Another one was we were looking for corporate space. So as I mentioned, my partner's office closed here in Dar. So I didn't get a chance to really get a chance to look around to see if I could find potentially a very small corporate space, very similar to what I have back in Kansas. However, there are a lot of co-working spaces here in Dar. So I think that's going to be a very good possibility for us as we start to get into this routine of coming back more often, is maybe we just use a co-working space. for our needs. So we'll be able to meet clients, we'll have access to consistent internet, be able to meet clients, have access to copiers and all of those officey things that normal businesses need to run, but I don't necessarily need something permanent yet. So there's an opportunity there. Another aspect that we missed this time is a two-parter, because one, I wanted to go to Zanzibar, which is a very awesome 2-hour ferry ride trip from downtown Dar es Salaam. But they also have a couple of universities there that are tech universities. And it was one of our goals to go to Zanzibar, check out these universities, get a chance to meet with the administrators of these universities and potentially talk about some opportunities to work together. So we didn't make it to Zanzibar. On the Dar side, we made email contact with a couple of universities, but we didn't get a chance to follow up. We didn't hear back. And since we're out of time, I'll probably follow up through email, hopefully be able to get something scheduled for our next visit out come July. So there's that. So plans for the next trip. In general, we did pretty good with the connections that we did make. Folks are very interested in what we have to offer, very interested in partnership. Their biggest question was, when are you coming back? And how often are you coming? And how long are you planning to get this set up? So all very good questions. So for this year, we're going fairly slow and steady because things take time. But for the most part, we're planning on going back every quarter. So our next trip out will be around July, where I'm hoping that my co-CEO and my husband, my VP of engagement, will also be able to join me. So Kingston will be able to go to school, and Christopher will be able to get some exposure to the Tanzanian market. I can start introducing him to the contacts that I made, and we will start making a go of this. It takes time, but we are well on our way. So good things happen there for that particular trip. Overall impression, as I've always said, people are very nice, people are very engaging. Being an American here has its benefits and its not benefits. But for the most part, if you are a business person or a businesswoman or a businessman and you're wanting to expand, good for you. But be sure that you do your research and be prepared to take time. So all of the revenue that you have at home, that is what's going to sustain you as you continue to expand across the globe. So overall, great trip. And I want to take a second to thank all of my supporters, thank my clients for being flexible while I'm out of the country. Looking at you, AMC. And also thanks to all of my personal friends, like my hairstylist, my nail person. Look, they survived. So thank you all for your support, and I will see you back in the States. Check out our second video.